The old man's name was Harold James Mercer. He was 95 years old now. His hands shook a little when he lifted his coffee cup. His hair was completely white, thin like morning frost on a window pane. His eyes were blue, still sharp, still clear, like two pieces of sky that refused to age. He lived alone in a small house in Savannah, Georgia. The house smelled like old wood and coffee and something else. Something quiet. Something like memory. Every morning, Harold sat in his rocking chair by the window. He watched the oak trees. He watched the birds. He watched the street where children played, where young couples walked holding hands, where life moved fast and easy and without thinking. He watched all of it. And he remembered. His granddaughter, Emma, came every Sunday. She was 24 years old, always rushing, always looking at her phone, always with coffee in one hand and car keys in the other. But she loved her grandfather. She sat with him for hours. She asked him questions that no one else thought to ask. One Sunday in October, the leaves were falling outside. The light was golden and slow. Emma sat on the floor beside his rocking chair. Her knees pulled to her chest like a child, and she asked, "Grandpa, tell me about the first time you fell in love?" Harold didn't answer right away. He looked out the window. His chair rocked slowly, back and forth. Back and forth. Then he smiled, not a big smile. A small, private smile, the kind that belongs to a moment so personal that even sharing it feels like opening a locked door. Her name, he said quietly, was Dorothy Lane, and I was 16 years old. Georgia. 1945, the war was everywhere that year. It was in the newspapers. It was in the radio. It was in the empty chairs at dinner tables across America. It was in the eyes of mothers who stood at front doors watching the mailbox, hoping for a letter, terrified of a telegram. Harold was 16 in the summer of 1945. He lived on his father's farm outside Savannah. He worked hard every day. Tobacco fields, morning to evening, sun on his neck, dirt under his nails. He didn't complain. No one did. Complaining felt wrong when your neighbor's son was fighting in Europe and your cousin hadn't written home in 3 months. But on Friday nights, everything changed. The Starlight Dance Hall was on the corner of Jefferson and Bay Street. It was not a fancy place. The floors were old wood. The ceiling fans turned slowly. The lights were dim and warm like candlelight. A 4-piece band played in the corner. Piano, trumpet, bass, drums, nothing complicated, just good, honest music that made your feet move before your mind gave permission. Harold's friend Tommy had convinced him to come. "Come on, Harry, it's one night. You work every other night of your life." So Harold put on his father's good shirt, the white one, slightly too big in the shoulders, and combed his hair straight and walked 3 miles to the Starlight Dance Hall on a warm Friday evening in July of 1945. He did not expect anything. He was a farm boy, quiet, a little shy. He stood near the wall most evenings, watching others dance, tapping his foot, drinking sweet tea and pretending he didn't want to dance when actually he did, very much. Then the band began playing "I'll Be Seeing You," and Dorothy Lane walked in. She wore a red dress. Not a fancy dress, not expensive. But it was red, deeply, completely red, and it moved when she moved, and when she stepped through that door, the whole room seemed to notice without knowing why. She was 16, same age as Harold. Her hair was dark brown, pinned back loosely, with small pieces falling at her temples. She had a quiet face, not loud, not performing, just real and warm and present, in the way that some people are, the way that makes a room feel safer when they enter it. Harold saw her and forgot to breathe. Not dramatically, not like in the movies. He just forgot. For about 4 seconds, his lungs simply stopped doing their job. Tommy elbowed him in the ribs. "You're staring, Harry." "I know," said Harold. "I can't stop." He watched her from across the room for 20 minutes. He built up the courage 4 separate times and lost it 4 separate times. His heart was doing things hearts are not supposed to do. His hands were slightly damp. He told himself it was the summer heat. Then Dorothy looked across the room. And she looked directly at him, not past him, not near him. At him, for 2 full seconds. Then she looked away. Harold walked across that dance floor before his brain had any say in the matter. His legs simply moved. Later in life, he would say that was the bravest thing he ever did. Not the war. Not anything else, but crossing that dance floor at 16 years old. He stopped in front of her. His mouth opened. He said, "Would you like to dance?" His voice only shook a little. Dorothy looked at him. She had brown eyes, warm and calm like creek water in summer. She looked at him the way you look at something you've been expecting, but weren't sure would actually arrive. Then she smiled and said, "I thought you'd never ask." 3 minutes. The song lasted 3 minutes. Harold would know this because years later, decades later, he found the recording of that exact song and timed it. 3 minutes and 14 seconds. I'll Be Seeing You by Frank Sinatra. But in that dance hall, time did not behave normally. 3 minutes felt like a whole summer evening. It felt like something outside of time, like a space that existed between the real world and somewhere better. They danced slowly, Harold's hand on her waist, careful, respectful, terrified. Her hand in his. The music around them like warm water. They didn't say much, just their names, where they lived, small nervous sentences that meant nothing and everything. At one point Dorothy rested her head very briefly, just for a second, against his shoulder. Like she was tired. Like she trusted him. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Harold closed his eyes. He thought, I want to remember this. Whatever happens, I want to remember exactly this. The song ended. They stepped apart. Harold's hand left her waist. The warm space between them filled with air and music and the sounds of other people. Thank you, Dorothy said softly. Thank you, said Harold. I'm Harold. I know, she said. Your friend Tommy told everyone your name when you walked in. Harold laughed. She laughed. And in that laughter something small and real and precious was born between them. He never danced with her again that night. He meant to ask again. He planned the words. But people moved and conversation shifted and Tommy needed him, and then it was late and people were leaving. And Dorothy was already at the door with her friends, her red dress a last flash of color before she disappeared into the Georgia night. Harold stood on the sidewalk outside the Starlight. He could still feel her hand in his. He thought, I'll see her next Friday. I'll ask her name properly. I'll be braver. But there was no next Friday. 3 days later, a letter came from the U.S. Army. Harold James Mercer was 16 years old. But he had told them he was 18. Boys did that then. The war needed men and boys became men faster than nature intended. He shipped out on a Tuesday morning. His mother cried. His father shook his hand. His little sister pressed her face against the truck window and waved until she was too small to see. Harold sat in the truck and thought about red dresses and 3 minutes of dancing and brown eyes warm as creek water. I'll come back, he told himself. I'll find her. The war. He does not talk much about the war. When Emma asked him, over the years, he would say only, it was very cold and very loud. And then sometimes very quiet, which was worse. He was in France, then Belgium, then Germany. He was cold for 2 years. He slept in mud. He lost friends. He saw things that took 30 years to stop seeing at night. But he had one thing. In his chest pocket next to his heart, he carried a small piece of paper. He had written on it, the night before he shipped out, in his careful farm boy handwriting, Dorothy Lane, red dress, Starlight Dance Hall, July 1945, 3 minutes. He didn't know why he wrote it. He just needed it to exist somewhere outside his head. He needed proof. On the worst nights, he would take out that piece of paper. He would read those words in the dark. And he would feel, for a moment, warm. After Harold came home in 1947, he was 18 years old and felt 40. He went back to Savannah. The farm, the tobacco fields. The same oak trees, the same birds, the same roads. But everything felt slightly wrong, the way a familiar song sounds wrong when played in the wrong key. He went to the Starlight Dance Hall on a Friday night. The same floors, the same ceiling fans, different faces. No red dress. He asked around. Tommy knew people who knew people. Eventually someone told him. Dorothy Lane had moved with her family to Charleston, South Carolina in the spring of 1946. Her father had found work there. She was gone. Harold stood outside the Starlight for a long time. And he walked home. He put the piece of paper in a box. He closed the box. He put it on a shelf. He lived his life. He married a good woman named Ruth in 1952. Ruth was kind and funny and strong, and she loved Harold completely, and he loved her back, fully, honestly, with his whole heart. They had 3 children, 7 grandchildren, a good life, a real life. Ruth passed away in 2019, 57 years of marriage. Harold held her hand at the end and whispered, I'll be seeing you. Sunday morning, October. Emma sat on the floor, very still. The rocking chair had stopped moving. Harold looked at his hands for a moment, then out the window. Did you ever find out what happened to her? Emma asked quietly. To Dorothy? Harold smiled, that small private smile again. I did, he said. About 15 years ago. The internet, your father showed me. He chuckled softly. Dorothy Lane married a schoolteacher in Charleston, had 4 children, lived a long life. He paused. She passed away in 2014. She was 85 years old. Emma felt something ache in her chest. I'm sorry, Grandpa. Don't be, he said gently. She had a good life. I had a good life. I had your grandmother, God bless her. He looked out at the oak trees, the leaves falling, the golden light. But you know what I think about Emma? What? 3 minutes, he said. I think about those 3 minutes. I'll be seeing you playing, her hand in mine, her head on my shoulder for just 1 second. He touched his chest lightly, just for a moment. 80 years later, I can still feel it. Right here, Emma was quiet. That's the thing about love, Harold said. The real moments, they don't age. They just stay, exactly as they were. Perfect and warm and right there whenever you need them. He looked at her. His blue eyes, still clear, still sharp, still 2 pieces of sky. 3 minutes, he said again, softly. It was enough. Outside, the oak trees moved in the autumn wind. The leaves fell slowly, like small memories letting go. And Harold James Mercer closed his eyes and rocked, gently, in his chair, still hearing the music, still feeling her hand in his, still 16 years old, still dancing.